what led you to starting the Running Effect podcast? Because you're just absolutely crushing it in the podcast space, and you're 17 years old. I don't know how many other 17-year-old podcasters are out there, and I know age doesn't matter, but it's still just impressive to me. But what initially led you to starting the podcast?
I love answering this question because it kills two birds with one stone. One, my running journey, and two, how the podcast got started, because they are intertwined. So as I took you guys through, I started out at 5, kind of realized I was actually decent at it, was really, really good in Erie, Pennsylvania. I won my city championship as a 7-year-old. And I remember that morning, my brother said I was super into collecting football cards. He was like, I'll buy you football cards if you win today's race, as if I didn't need extra motivation to win it. So won that mile championship. And then we moved to Toledo. Competition was a little better. And I started not winning, and I started kind of placing, not middle of the pack, but like top 10, not where I wanted to be. And I was kind of okay with that, which again, I was like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. Looking back on it, shouldn't have cared so much, but I really started to not like running. And I felt like at that time, my brothers were like still like pushing me on in a good way. But I was like, yeah, I don't really like running. I'd rather kick the soccer ball around the yard. That's more fun. And then a light flip switched. I just butchered those words.
I say that saying wrong every time I say it.
I flipped the switch of the light. I love this. And in 6th grade, I placed 4th. Top 3 get medals. Biggest motivator for middle schoolers, those shiny medals. And I was like, okay, next year, this is not going to happen. I'm getting a freaking medal. So then I trained a little bit going into 7th grade, like a little more seriously, because for those that don't know, middle school practice is run 2 laps. We're going to do some jumping jacks, some fun relays, and then you get a piece of candy or a popsicle and you go home. Like, it's not serious training. So I actually ran a little bit over the summer. In 7th grade, not only did I place 4th, but I was in 3rd the whole race and got out-leaned. And that was the light bulb switch moment where I was like, F it, I'm done. Like, I need to go all in because I need a medal next year. I got out-leaned. Like, I was devastated that I got 4th. So then in pursuit of wanting to be the best in my city, or at least, you know, as good as I thought, because that was the thing. I knew I could win. I just knew that I wasn't putting in the necessary work. So then I started exploring, how do I get good at this sport? Through that, went to the library, started reading every running book out there, started discovering podcasts, listening to a bunch of running podcasts, started finding professional coaches and runners' emails, and started just bugging them. How do I get good at running?
Jeez,
what workouts
man.
should I do? Like what's an easy run? What shoes should I buy? Like all the questions a new runner who wants to get good was asking. Through that, I won my city championship. I'll actually have to send you the video because my dad captured it by drone, which is pretty
That's
cool.
dope.
And that was such a meaningful race. To this day, like, I kind of get chills thinking about it because I put in so much work in order to get there. And also, I'm very proud of myself. Like, looking back on it, 8th grade's still pretty young, even though you feel so old in the moment. It's like, dude, I have the utmost respect for an 8th grader doing like 2 track workouts a week to go after what he wants. So winning that race was really meaningful. 1, to accomplish a goal I had set out to do, a feeling every runner can relate to. But number 2, I kind of, through that experience, was like, wow, I got good through the exploration of reading books and talking to like mentors, coaches, runners. And I was like, how many other kids are out there like me? That was the first thought of a podcast of like, oh, I want to help other kids out there like me who are like good, but they want to be great and they don't know what steps to take in order to be great.
How old were you when you first had that initial thought?
8th grade. After I won, I kind of drew that experience to, I'm winning because of the books and the runners and the coaches I talked to, but how many other kids aren't going to those means because they're not readily available.
Yeah.
I mean, I went through very deep holes to find people's emails.
You just became obsessed.
Yeah, exactly. So then that
You
was
were
the
like
first thought.
14?
8th grade, 13, 14, whatever it is. I think 13.
Okay.
13. So then a freshman year was good. Sophomore year was good. COVID happened. And that was like, I have to take action. I'm not going to let this podcast thought live with me till I die. Even though I'm super young, like, just start it. And through that wealth of connections from connecting with people over the previous years, I already had so many guests who I knew I could get on. So I wasn't starting from zero because I already had relationships. So I started it this summer, going into my sophomore year. So that is 2020, coming up on 3 years. And yeah, my whole intent with it to begin with was to give younger runners the tools and skills necessary to succeed and to take their running to the next level, because that was me. If I hadn't sought out those connections and those people's emails, like I wouldn't have been where I was. And at the time I was like a pretty solid runner. So I really wanted to, through my interviews, give back to the next generation of like my younger self. Like I wanted to be the resource that I wish I had. So started the podcast, absolutely laughable. I like every week I consider, should I take down the first few episodes? Like honestly, the first 50 were just trash.
Why do you think they were so bad? Like, what about them were so bad?
The biggest thing, I mean, even you hear it in my voice now, you just develop so much at my age. And at 15, you know, I had like such a squeaky voice. So I'm serious. Everyone go listen to episode 1 of The Running Effect. It's laughable, but it's beautiful because I'm leaving it on there for the eternity.
Yep.
Because it shows people where I started and where people can start. That I haven't always been this, oh, you're on the Spotify charts. It's like, yeah, that wouldn't be special if I didn't suck originally. And that's the beauty of life. And something, you know, I preach to you all the time. Like, dude, you can flunk these first 50 episodes, which you're killing it already. Like, you can flunk these first 50 episodes, and it doesn't really matter because you grow at an exponential rate, 1. And 2, I'd be a little concerned if you weren't, if you didn't have things to improve on originally. Right. So that's how the podcast started. And then I can kind of take you through how it grew. I was just doing it for fun, a hobby. Of course, I did have the intent, but it wasn't like something I was like super passionate about growing. It was more like I had no clue what I was doing. And I was like, my dad would edit it and then we'd throw it up on YouTube. Like I wasn't even on Spotify or Apple Podcast till like episode 40.
So now you're not on YouTube. What the hell, man?
We'll fix that. So I'm trying to use that phrase again. The thought went off in my mind, similar to me in 7th grade, of like, okay, I'm already putting time and effort into this. How can I be great at it? Because I'm already putting time into it. Like, might as well achieve excellence in this as well. So basically last summer, so really not like just a year ago, I was like, I already have the podcast. I'm very inconsistent. Sometimes it's 2 episodes a week. Sometimes it's 1 every 3 weeks. And you're not going to grow this way. I didn't have Instagram, so there was no marketing. And last summer I was like, okay, let's actually see, you do like this, you're passionate about it, you have the guests who are really, really solid runners. Like, okay, go all in and see what happens. And literally in less than a year, transformation is ridiculous. I'm trying to think of the number off the top of my head. From last April to this April, our monthly listeners have gone up like 2,600%.
Holy shit.
And even in the past 6 months, our monthly listeners are up 660%. And that is proof of that consistency works. I went from an episode every 2 weeks to then 2 a week to now 1 every other day. And so many people want the results, but they're not willing to put in the work to get there. And I remind myself that every morning when I don't want to do it or don't want to hop on an interview or don't want to write show notes for the 5th time that day. But I do truly love most of it, even the sometimes suckier parts like editing or show notes or whatnot. And yeah, through that hard work, that work ethic, and more importantly, learning how to freaking market something, even basic, it's really started to take off. In January, we were ranked as low as number 30 on Spotify's charts for top sports podcasts, which was unbelievable. Like seeing my podcast below NFL films and like ESPN shows with massive budgets. It's like, whoa, this startup podcast from my basement where I do everything is beating all these shows. And definitely that had a chip on my shoulder / just proud that I'm like, these people have like multi-million-dollar budgets, The Ringer, like all those people. And it's like just 17-year-old chip on his shoulder, really passionate about a mission. And yeah, 30. And then like last year we were the top 5% most followed and shared podcasts. So seeing statistics like that were pretty neat. And then now all the time too, I'm starting to get these emails from people all over. Last week was Australia. 3 weeks ago was a high schooler in Poland. And it's just like, whoa, the impact is truly remarkable. And it motivates me when I don't want to do it. And I got an email one time from a high school coach in Kentucky. Shout out if you're listening. Super long, kind email. But he ended it with basically like, if nothing else, I hope this message like inspires you on the days when you're not feeling like it, not feeling like posting, because it's impacting me and my team in Kentucky. I was like, dude. So that was a very long response, but that's kind of the journey in a nutshell.
That's amazing, man. So you literally just made the decision. I mean, you were doing it for a little bit, like you said, like 2 years or so before you actually went hard into it and just made a decision to make that, try and build it up and grow it. Dude, that's so inspiring, man. Because we talked about before, like if you go back and look at like Chris Williamson, he's starting to blow up now in the podcast space. And I went back. This was in my internal conflict of should I start a podcast or no? Like, because in my mind, I want to be everything's got to be perfect and look great and sound great and whatnot. And so I had to justify it to myself that like you got to start somewhere. You just have to start.
You can't improve what doesn't already exist.
That's right. And so I went back and I looked at it was like Chris Williamson's very first episode. It was just him. There was like one microphone in the middle of this room, one like shitty webcam like 30 feet away. It just looked terrible, sound terrible. And now he's got like nearly 1 million YouTube subscribers and a giant podcast. And same with like Joe Rogan. Like go back and look at his first episode. They're just like these people trying to figure it out and just starting. And that's the biggest thing. And that's something that you have obviously done is you just started and you just took that first step and got into it.
Right.
So do you think here's some numbers I want to read now. There are estimated 5 million there are estimated 5 million podcasts worldwide. But of those 500, oh my goodness, I cannot read today. Of those 5 million, there are only 500,000 active podcasts. Like, do you think that there's something to be said there? Like, I don't know what percentage that would be. I'm not doing the math right now, but a very small percentage of people that start a podcast actually follow through with it and continue to do it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'll throw you another statistic. 90% of podcasts that start don't make it past episode 3. So
90?
Congratulations on being in the 10%.
Oh, wow.
And then of those 10% that survive, 90% of those quit after 20.
Holy shit. You said 90, so 90% of
podcasts that start quit after episode 3. And then 10%, the 10% that survives that 90% that get cut, 90% of that 10% quit after episode 20.